never regain. Stuck in a losing game, we pass the blame. Cycle starts again, we break with a chance to remake. It's up of our mistakes. We follow the lead, but it leads to nothing when nothing is left to claim. We fell addicted to fame and promise of grandeur, but promises never stain. They say you can only get better from here. They say there's plenty more to go. All the answers turn to words that disengage. A will surrenders, letting our future start to fade away. All the answers turn to words that rearrange. We're caught in the sunset, taking a last breath as we fade away.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Restoring the Roar. It's been a while, but happy to be back talking Lions football. Got a busy show planned. We're 45 minutes away from kickoff. Hoping to be off before then, but we'll see how this goes. So, gonna kind of recap the weeks that I was supposed to be doing shows and didn't. So, from the Panthers game to now. Going to kind of go over the games quickly, give some thoughts on those. Going to give game balls from this past game against the Chargers, and going to go through and do some midseason awards. This is kind of something I just thought about this morning, actually, and went through, gave a couple candidates for each award, and then gave a winner. So we'll go through all that, and then we'll look at today's game, do the typical keys to victory, and my game prediction for this Bears game this morning. So let's get into it. Thank you to everyone for tuning in. If you like what we're doing here, like, share, subscribe if you're watching on YouTube, comment. Just answering a message here. All right, let's get into it. So, going to start with these weekly recaps. We'll go to that 42-24 win against the Panthers. This was just a really big win for the team. Really good team football. The defense played really well. The offense got moving. I mean, the score kind of says it all there. Not too much to go off of there. The 20-6 win on the road against Tampa Bay. This was a game where early the momentum flipped in our favor, and we kind of just controlled it at that point. There was the tip into the interception early on in the game that would have been probably an 80-yard touchdown for Mike Evans. Instead was an interception, and from there, momentum just kind of went in our favor. Big win on the road against an NFC team. Probably feeling ourselves a little too much at that point, because the next week we went into Baltimore and we got our asses kicked, 38-6. Lamar Jackson played very well. like he has most of the season. He's one of those front runners for MVP. Mark Andrews torched us, the running game torched us. We lost every facet of that game. And it was just one of those games that kind of reset everything. We needed one of those losses, in my opinion. And glad it went in an interconference matchup. Glad that went to an AFC team and not one of these NFC teams that we're fighting for playoff spots with. Just a good old-fashioned ass whooping. Not too much to say about that. Week 8, come home and play the Raiders on Monday night, and we dominated that game more than the score showed. They weren't able to do too much. We didn't put the ball in the end zone as much as we should have, but it was a win that was never really in question. I always felt really confident with that. So it was a nice win to go into that week 9 bye, which was huge for that time because we got healthy, and we got healthy all over the place. The offensive line got healthy, which the most impressive thing for me with this 7-2 record we have is in the 9 games we've played, we've had, I believe, 8 different offensive line combinations. So the offensive line got healthy for that week 10 game. Montgomery got healthy. He was back. Brian Branch came back. A lot of these key guys that were missing from the lineup came back for that week 10 game, the 41-38 win over the Chargers. This was a phenomenal game. And it was one that, even though it was really close, kind of like that Raiders game, I never felt like we were going to lose that game. They torched our defense left, right, and center. I don't know how Keenan Allen consistently got open. It was really only him and Austin Eckler that were doing the damage, but those are 2 elite players, and they made us pay a lot. But the running game in this game, both Gibbs and Montgomery, I think that's really from the Ravens game till now. I think the big thing to take away offensively is they figured out how they want to use Jahmyr Gibbs, and it is working. If I'm not mistaken, I know going into the Chargers game from week 7 to 10, he was the league leader in scrimmage yards. So, and I mean, he put up a ton more in week 10. So, I think in that 4-week stretch, he's probably still the leader, but really good to see Gibbs and Montgomery work well together. I expect a lot more of that today. And speaking of those running backs, I'm just going to dive into it now. The game balls from week 10, I gave it to both running backs because they both worked together really well. Gibbs took a lot of the brunt of the carries, but Montgomery used his well, getting over 100 yards. Now most of it was a 75-yard carry for the touchdown, but he still had a very good game. He was effective when they needed him to be, and Gibbs was all over the place. So I was very happy with that. Phenomenal performance from these running backs and the offensive line with Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa on the other side to limit that pass rush. Phenomenal performance by the offensive line. They almost got this game ball. It was between the offensive line and the running backs for me. It's tough to not throw Amon-Ra St. Brown in there too. He's been killing it. I think 7 of the last 8 games he's gone over 100 yards receiving, so he's definitely killing it. But whooping, yeah. Assuming you're talking about the Ravens game, it was a good old-fashioned ass whooping. Scott says, first, you're the second comment on my list, but thank you guys for tuning in anyways. Johnny said, wrong, Scott. And Misador, thank you for tuning in, said Lions will break the scoreboard today, putting up Tecmo numbers against the Bears. I'd love for that to be the case. It's in Detroit. We do play a lot better at home, and we've essentially owned the division as of late. I think we've won 8 of our last 9 division games, something like that. So I expect a lot of the same today. Moving on to the defensive game ball, Alex Anzalone for me. And I'm continuing to eat crow about this guy. I was not happy when they brought him back, and all he's doing is being the leader on the defense, leading in tackles, and he's everywhere when you watch the game film. In coverage, always shutting down the run game. He's played phenomenally this year, and you'll see his name come up for a lot of awards here. He's killed it this year. So I had to give him the game ball. He played amazing against the Chargers with a tough running back assignment in Austin Eckler. And the special teams one was pretty easy. It was Riley Patterson. Game-winning field goal. Clinched the win for us. And while he doesn't have the leg that a lot of these other top-tier kickers have, he is very accurate, rarely misses. He's one of those guys that when he lines up for a kick, you expect it to go in. That's how well he's done, and had to show him some love here. All right. This is the part that's going to take up the chunk of the show here, so let's get into it. These Lions mid-season awards. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I have 10 awards. So we're doing the comeback player of the year. We're going to do a little thing that all the teams I played for did. We're going to do an offensive and defensive lineman of the year and an offensive and defensive back of the year. So that offensive back will be running backs, receivers, that kind of stuff. And obviously defensive backs, pretty cut and dry. And then the typical offensive and defensive rookies of the year, offensive and defensive players of the year, and the team MVP. So we're going to start off with the comeback player of the year. And it's all on the defensive side of the ball. And these are all guys that are very deserving to be in this conversation. Alex Anzalone just keeps getting better and better. And none of these guys were really the injury comeback. It's a lot of the same how Geno Smith won the league comeback player of the year last year, where it was just kind of, there wasn't much in the way of expectations before. And then they've just blown it up this year, played very well. Anzalone, the leading tackler. Jerry Jacobs, until he got hurt, was tied for the league lead in interceptions. He's still way up that list. And Aleem McNeil has been a game breaker in the middle. I decided to go with Aleem McNeil on this one. Partially because these other guys are going to come up in other awards, in other discussions for awards, I should say. But Aleem McNeil has been awesome in the interior of this defensive line. Has given Aiden Hutchinson help from the interior, pushing the pocket, rushing the passer, but he's been amazing in the run game. He's up there with Hutchinson in pretty much every stat. Tackles for loss, sacks, he's half or one behind. He's been awesome this year, and Aleem McNeil deserves this comeback player of the year award. Ben, thank you for tuning in. Says, I voted Alex for Lions podcaster of the year. Thank you, sir. We're going to move into that offensive back of the year award now. And the three I chose, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jahmyr Gibbs, and David Montgomery. I almost threw Josh Reynolds in this list too, because he's one of those guys that's been quietly very good this year. I know the stat going into, I believe it was the Baltimore game, was that every catch he had was either for a first down or a touchdown. He was a big-time player for us when we need him to be there. So I just about threw him in here. But the absolute resurgence that Jahmyr Gibbs has had, and just the takeoff that he's had these past few weeks, I had to throw him in here, show him some love. Amon-Ra St. Brown's been a top 10 receiver in football, and some places have him top 5. I am in that 6 to 10 range, but I've seen quite a few places have him top 5. And David Montgomery, he's in that discussion. He's easily a top 10 running back right now, and in the discussion for top 5. Again, I have him 6 to 10. I gave this award to David Montgomery. He was the tone setter for the first, 6 weeks? Well, I guess he wasn't in for the full 6 weeks. But while he was in, he was the absolute tone setter. He was the hammer. He was everything that Dan Campbell wants this team to be. He's physical. He's feisty. He's gritty. He's going to work for every yard he can get. I love the physicality he plays with. And he's that old-fashioned running back. I love everything that David Montgomery brings to this football team. And I had to show him some love here. He's been awesome in his first year in the Motor City. So David Montgomery is your winner for Offensive Back of the Year. Now over to the defensive side. Defensive Back of the Year. If I was listing more guys, I would. Or if I was throwing more than 3 guys in there, Brian Branch would get some love here as well. But I had to narrow it down to these 3. Cam Sutton's been awesome. He's been a borderline Pro Bowl level corner, not getting targeted too often because he's just locking his guys down. Jerry Jacobs, like I said, for a long time was amongst the league leaders in interceptions. And Kirby Joseph's been awesome playing that deep safety. And he's done everything they ask him to do and then some. But my winner for this, I went with Jerry Jacobs. The fact that Sutton's locking down those guys, so they're targeting Jacobs, and Jacobs has played phenomenally as well. All those interceptions, very good in coverage. He's a little handsy at times, gets caught with some penalties, but I love that aggressiveness he plays with and his ability to make plays on the ball. He's progressed so quickly from what everyone expected him to be. Campbell's first year here in 2021, he was an undrafted rookie. So for him to be very like one of the guys we rely on in that secondary, and he's playing well, wanted to show him some love here, and he is my Defensive Back of the Year. Did I penalize Branch for his injury? A little bit. And at the same time, Jacobs got hurt as well. But it was just the fact that Jacobs on the outside has been an absolute difference maker. Branch was a lot more in the box. And plus, I mean, obviously Branch is going to be in the Defensive Rookie of the Year running. Tried to spread some of the recognition out to get as many guys involved as possible. So yeah, handed this one to Jerry Jacobs. Felt like he was deserving of the recognition. Cam Sutton was my second choice there. It was between those two. The corners have been awesome this year. Hopefully with a playoff run, hopefully CJ Gardner-Johnson could get back, and then this secondary could be a real problem again. But they're playing very well, and Jacobs is a big reason for that. Now moving on to my favorite section, the offensive line, the Offensive Lineman of the Year award. My top 3 guys were Penei Sewell, Frank Ragnow, and Graham Glasgow. And it's a nice little mix here because Sewell and Ragnow are up in the top 2 to 3 of their position, most places that you look. And then Graham Glasgow is a guy that realistically could be in the running for the team MVP because with those 8 different line combinations, I think it was, he's played both guard spots, both guard spots and the center spot, and played very well while doing it. He was the guy that I said off the year I wanted him starting at that right guard spot, and he will be for the rest of the year, or potentially left guard today because Jonah Jackson's out today, and Vaitai got put on IR, aggravated the back injury that cost him all of last season. So his season is over. Graham Glasgow comes into that starting lineup. And Colby Sorsdal, the 5th-round rookie, also comes into the lineup. He's played well when called upon the past couple weeks. But to me, this award was clearly Penei Sewell. He has not given up a sack all year, hardly given up a QB pressure at all this year. And you go through the list of opponents we've played and those edge rushers. I mean, just last week alone was Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack, and did not allow a single pressure. Max Crosby played very well against him. That Ravens pass rush, I mean, they messed up all our offensive linemen. Penei Sewell held his own against them. I mean, Bucks have a good pass rush. Brian Burns for the Panthers. Yeah, there's some very good defensive linemen Penei Sewell's going against. Has not allowed a sack. He's been amazing in the run game. And he's the only offensive lineman that's played every snap so far this season. He started every game, played the left and the right tackle this season, with Decker missing the first couple games. And Sewell's been elite. He is easily a top 5 tackle in football right now. And I can't say enough good things about Penei Sewell. He's arguably my favorite player on this team, and another guy that embodies everything that Dan Campbell is looking for. Johnny said, who gets the award for Alex's most underrated player? You know, like someone you ragged on, but he came back and made you eat your words. Yeah, that was everything I said about Alex Anzalone when I was talking about him for comeback player of the year. Everything I said about him was wrong. So he absolutely has exceeded every expectation I had for him and has been the leader of this defense. And speaking of defense, I'm going to go to the defensive side for defensive lineman of the year. This was really a 2-person race. It was Hutchinson and Aleem McNeil. And I just kind of had to throw somebody else in there. So I threw Julian Okwara, who's technically listed as a linebacker, but when he comes in, the majority of the time he has the hand in the dirt as that edge rusher. So for me, Hutchinson, Aleem McNeil, like I said earlier, they're pretty much 1 and 2 in every stat for the defensive line, the tackles for loss, the sacks, all those. The difference for me is the fact that Hutchinson, and the reason he wins this, is the interception, the constantly getting double teamed, he's constantly getting held. He's like, the game plan for opposing offenses, they have to stop Hutchinson. And a lot of McNeil's success is because of a guy like Hutchinson on the outside. I mean, you got to also credit McNeil for dropping 30 pounds in the offseason. He's been way more athletic. Still has that strength. That's not an issue for him. But Hutchinson is still that working into that game-breaking defensive end role. And he's already a guy you got a game plan against. So, this was probably my closest one between Hutchinson and McNeil. But with McNeil getting the comeback player award, I decided to go with Hutchinson here. All right, let's move on to the rookies, the young guys. We've talked about a few of them already. My offensive rookie of the year is between Jahmyr Gibbs, Sam Laporta, and Colby Sorsdal. I wanted to throw a third guy in there. And there hasn't really been much else for offensive rookie production. Antoine Green got in a little bit. But it's Colby Sorsdal's been the third best guy. But again, this really is another 2-person race. And there was one lead guy for a long time, and then that being Sam Laporta. And Jahmyr Gibbs has brought himself right back into the discussion with the past few weeks. But with that consistency from week 1 to week 10, I went with Sam Laporta. This is a guy that's been, I mean, we've talked about a few of these guys being borderline top 5 at their positions. Sam Laporta is another guy that's right outside the top 5 tight ends for me. Some people put him in there. He's played phenomenally all season. Good hands, good route running, good blocker. You see a lot of those mistakes still that these rookies make, but the fact that he's performed as well as he has, had to show him some love here. Sam Laporta is my offensive rookie of the year. Johnny said can't lose with Hutch. Yeah. Laporta's production has been down, though, the last couple weeks. Yeah, that's absolutely true. But you've still seen the production and the blocking for Laporta, and that's what kept him in the front running for me. He didn't do as much receiving the past few weeks, but he's still been a difference maker for Gibbs mostly the past few weeks. So it was really close. I just wanted the consistency throughout the season for that one. Sean, thank you for tuning in. Said Antoine Green, glad he's making some progress. Yeah, he's been doing really well in practice the past few weeks. Starting to see a little bit of game time. A lot on special teams, but slowly starting to get some reps on the offensive side of the ball. And yeah, he's working his way into the lineup, so you love to see that, especially from a 7th round pick. All right, moving on to the defensive rookie of the year. Again, another 2-person race. Stephen Gilmore is a guy that has helped when they called upon him. Hasn't really done that much, though. So it's Jack Campbell and Brian Branch. This was a tough one because they've both played really well. They've both been in and out of the lineup. And they've both been impact guys for this defense. For me, though, I went with Brian Branch. And this is a big reason he wasn't in the defensive back of the year running there. But he's been a tone setter in the box. He's been a heavy hitter, solid tackler, doesn't miss many tackles, pretty solid in coverage as well, and covering those shifty slot receivers. So a lot has been asked of Brian Branch, and he's shown up. He's played very well. No knock to Jack Campbell either. He's rotating in with a lot of really good linebackers. Linebackers that have been playing really well. And they've both been difference makers in the run game. Campbell, he's been doing solid in the pass game. Still has a bit to work on. But yeah, the 2 very solid pieces to this defense for the next few years, at least, hopefully for a long, long time. Yeah, this was a tough one, but I went with Brian Branch. Johnny said over under 49.5 rushing yards for Montgomery today. Over. I would hammer most of the overs that they have. I would hammer over on this. I would hammer at least a touchdown today. For Montgomery playing against his old team. I think they're going to feature him a lot today. I really do. Now, obviously, Gibbs will get a lot of touches as well. They've shown that the past few weeks, but I think Montgomery, with this being his game against his former team, I think they're going to show him off today, and I think he's going to make the Bears pay for letting him walk. So definitely the over on that. All right, we're down to our final 3 awards here. The Offensive Player of the Year award. I went with Montgomery, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Sam Laporta. And again, there's so many other guys that are deserving. Goff deserves to be in here. Jahmyr Gibbs, with his play the last few weeks, deserves to be in here. A guy like Josh Reynolds could be in this discussion. But to me, it was hard to narrow it down to 3. I was just reading Johnny's comment here. It said, I have him at 45 rushing yards because of the goal line thing, but 2 TDs. Yeah, I feel like that's a pretty solid expectation for him. But we'll see how that goes today. I think probably closer to 60 yards, but is where I'm at. But I think he'll have a good game today, and especially from a fantasy football perspective, I think he'll be solid today. In my one league, I have both Gibbs and Montgomery, so I am playing both of them today. just because they both played so well last week. Kind of waiting to see who takes the brunt of the load. But yeah, it's going to be a good game for both running backs today, in my opinion. Sean said, any chance this game is close today? I think so. I think there's a chance this game is close. Fields being that mobile quarterback, it always gives troubles to defenses. And especially when most of the tape from this year has been from Tyson Bagent, and then you go back to Fields, makes DJ Moore so much more dangerous, makes Cole Kmet way more dangerous, and it helps that running game a lot. So I think there is a chance this is close today. There is a solid chance that the Bears cover that 7.5 point spread that's going in for today's game. I'll give my prediction in a little bit. Yeah, there's absolutely a chance. And on top of all that, it's a divisional game. So, yeah, very strong chance that it's close today, but there's also a heavy chance of a blowout. So, just have to wait and see. Yeah, Johnny, yeah, division games, no telling what they do. Yeah. I'm just glad we've held down the division for the past year and a half. And hopefully they can continue to do that. All right, yeah, for me, I showed Laporta some love. He's third behind, Montgomery and St. Brown are a fair bit ahead of him. And I went with St. Brown. This is a guy that's been the tone setter for those receivers. And he's a guy that loves to block, loves to take those short routes and fight for every yard he can get. He'll run the ball. He'll do anything they ask him to do. And he loves the game of football. Another Dan Campbell guy. And this is a guy that I hope we lock him up long-term. His contract's coming up, I think, after next season. But yeah, a guy that is absolutely game changer for this offense. And yeah, had to give him an award somewhere along the line here. And this is a guy that you'll see in the discussion for MVP in a couple minutes here. Amon-Ra St. Brown is absolutely the offensive player of the year for the Lions so far. And the defensive player of the year, I went one guy from each level. I went Aiden Hutchinson, Alex Anzalone, and Cam Sutton. These guys they're the leaders at each level of the defense. Two of those guys are veterans, and one's just a young guy for a young group, but has taken over the command of that defensive line right off the bat. They've all balled out for this defense, a defense that's vastly improved from last year. This was a really tough decision. Johnny said St. Brown is your franchise wide receiver, no doubt. Yeah, he's borderline already on the Mount Rushmore for Lions receivers. I know that might not be saying much, but he's getting into the discussion for he's in the discussion for a top 5 Lions wide receiver all time already. This is like, you have to game plan for Aiden Hutchinson. You have to make sure you get a hat on Alex Anzalone in the run game. And a lot of offenses are just staying away from Cameron Sutton because he's playing very good coverage on these wide receivers. I think this is going to shock some people, including Johnny. I went Alex Anzalone, though. This guy, like I said, has been the leader of our defense. He's greatly improved from last year. He's greatly improved his coverage, which was my main issue with him. He's been great in the run game, made sure everybody's in the position they need to be in. And, I felt like this was absolutely deserving. So for the first 10 weeks of the NFL season, my Lions defensive player of the year is Alex Anzalone. I think this was absolutely, if I could, I would. This was such a hard one to pick. I felt like Anzalone, if you take all three guys out of their levels of the defense, I actually think Anzalone's the one that hurts the most. So, I mean, you look at it, they're rotating. I think we're playing like 4 or 5 different linebackers, and it's all these other guys rotating alongside Anzalone. Anzalone's in there every snap. He's the green dot. He's the guy that's on the field all the time, getting everyone into the right spot, getting everyone into the right coverage, communicating with the line and the DBs. He's the heartbeat of this defense right now. So I absolutely think he deserves it. I love that you went Anzalone. Yeah, he absolutely deserves it. Sean said, I like him. Great story around him and his family. Yeah. Family was caught over in all that crossfire between Israel and Palestine. They got them home the day before the Bucs game. And I don't know if he's from Florida. I know he played at Florida in college, but they all met up the night before. He got to see them. It was a great story to see. I'm glad they got them home safe, and he's played phenomenally. So even if you're just looking at it on the field, Anzalone's the guy this year. So I'm more than happy to say I was horribly wrong about him, and I'll award him with Defensive Player of the Year for it. I went all offensively, though, for the MVP. The offense still drives this team. It's still the reason that they're one of the 3 best records in the NFL right now. And these guys have all been massive parts of that success. I know MVP is typically a quarterback award, and that's where I went. But the development Goff's had in Detroit over the last 3 years, 2.5, but he's taken off. He's done what a lot of people expected him to do as the number 1 pick in LA. He's another guy that's easily top 10, again, borderline top 5 quarterback in the NFL. You look at the numbers, he's up in that top 5 for almost everything. And he's been the straw that stirs the drink for the Detroit Lions for the last year and a half, easily. They molded this whole offense to what Goff does well, and you've seen massive improvement because of that. You've seen the play of all these different guys take off once Goff started playing well. Josh Reynolds, who played well with Goff in LA, went to Tennessee, did nothing, came to Detroit with Goff, and started playing well again. All these guys love him. They all play hard for him. He is absolutely the most valuable player for Detroit. Johnny said, too bad you didn't have Laporta as MVP. Would be fitting for a Dan Campbell-led team. Yeah, that would be, wouldn't it? Actually, I think then it would be someone like Penei Sewell, who, again, you can make the argument for someone like him in that as well. But, yeah, Jared Goff, to me, is the MVP for this Lions team. All right, we got 10 minutes before kickoff here, so I'm going to move on to the Chicago game today. My keys to victory versus the Chicago Bears. Number 1, limit the scrambling. Keep Justin Fields in the pocket. Make him beat you with his arm and not his legs. If you do that, I like our chances a lot, especially if we can do my second key, control DJ Moore. He's a guy that you don't shut out of the game completely. He's that good that it's very tough to do. But limit him. We've got the DBs to do it. If we can take advantage of that offensive line, get the pressure on Fields, keep that contained, and make him throw, I think that set us up really well to control this game. And the third one, run up the score. Don't take your time putting points on the board. Go at these guys, foot on the gas pedal, foot on their throats right away. Make this a track meet because they're not going to be able to keep up. If you let them be physical with Deontay Foreman, I don't know if Khalil Herbert's back today. I didn't take enough of a look at that. But if you let them use this run game and slow down the game, that gives them the chance to steal this and keep it close. Run up the score early. They're not going to be able to keep up and spread out that lead early. I just saw Johnny's other comments. So I'll get to that. Sean said, how high is Brian Branch on that MVP list? He'd be in the top 10 guys, I think, because what he's done defensively for these guys, the way they've been able to use him, he's absolutely a difference maker and a guy that deserves to be in that discussion. You could argue him top 5 if he didn't miss the 2-3 weeks that he did. But I mean, to me, this one was pretty much Goff and everyone else. But yeah, Branch is absolutely a guy that deserves to be in that discussion. As far as the prediction goes today, I know I said there's a chance it's close. I don't see it being that way. The Lions are a much better team. There's not many places the Bears have better players than the Lions. I think you could argue receiver for the Bears. Tight end, the way Komet's playing is kind of on par with Laporta. Maybe he's even, I'd say, better as of late than Laporta. They've got a couple good corners. Obviously, Eddie Jackson in that safety room. But other than that, there's not much that the Bears can do better than the Lions. So, like I said, to start the season, I think the Bears are a year behind the Lions. I think they're similar to the Lions of last year, especially if Fields would have stayed healthy. But I like the Bears down the line. I think they'll be dangerous, but I don't think they pose too much of a threat this year. Johnny said Foreman starting. He also said, don't control DJ too much. I started him this week. And then Sean said if Chicago played on Thursday night, I'd be worried. I'd be worried if it was Thursday night in Chicago because road teams typically don't play well on Thursday night. So, yeah, I'd be more worried if it was in Chicago Thursday night. But if it was in Detroit Thursday night, I'd feel pretty confident still. Montez Sweat, yeah. Yeah, and I like Montez Sweat a lot. I'd put him I'd put him even or slightly above Aiden Hutchinson. I was not happy when you guys traded him there and that they signed him long term. I wanted Montez Sweat to be a Lion, and unfortunately he went in division. So, yeah, thanks, Sean, for that. But yeah, I like Montez Sweat against our tackles today, though. Like I like our tackles to be able to limit him, especially if he's going up against Panay. Like I said, has not allowed a sack all year, has hardly allowed a pressure. He's been elite. So I like our offensive line against the defensive line and the linebackers. I like our receivers against the secondary. I like essentially all the matchups. I think it's a 14-point win. I think 34-20. I think 4 touchdowns, 2 field goals for us, and 2 touchdowns, 2 field goals for them. I think both teams are going to score a fair bit. But Sean said neither was I. Yeah. Could have traded him anywhere else. Like at least Chase Young, who I wanted one of those 2 in Detroit. At least he went to San Fran, which only worries me if we match them up in the playoffs. But yeah, Montez going to Chicago and signing for, I think it was 4 years. Not excited to see him 10 times in the next 5 years because we still play them both times this season. Johnny said the Bears do scheme their D-line pretty well to make up for any deficiencies. Yeah, that's been the one solid part of this coaching staff. They've schemed a lot of their defensive players well because it's not a good defense, but they do put them in position to succeed a lot of the time. So I think it'll be interesting early, and then I think we pull away late. Yeah, that's all I got. We're a couple minutes away from kickoff. Thank you to all you guys for tuning in. Johnny, Sean, Ben, Misador, Scott, thank you guys for commenting, and anyone else that tuned in, thank you. I'm debating now for moving it from Wednesday night to a pregame show. We'll see what I decide there. I will keep everyone posted on that. And until then, I will see you next time. Thanks again. Goodbye.